Hello, welcome to my wife's live stream. I'm curious if you guys can hear me okay. I noticed that the intro didn't play an audio sound, so make sure and use the comment section to let me hear from you. Say hello. I know I see only a few people, which is probably my team, but that's okay. You hear me okay? Okay, cool. We got another person that joined too. So, yeah, just a reminder. Welcome to the live stream. It's very casual. Going to go through some topics on Windows IoT today. Get you guys caught up. Use the comment sections to say hello. Henry says hello. A lot of you guys, if you work with us at Arrow, know Henry, and I can remember how to show that. Eh? Hey, Henry. Anybody else out there want to say hello? Just make a comment, post a comment. Let me get rid of this other little ticker here too. It's been a while. Time flies. We're already at the end of March, and not a lot has happened in the IoT channel. A lot of not many new products. We had Server 2025 come out this past fall, and Windows 11 LTSC, IoT LTSC has been around for almost a year. It came out last May. I was looking at the calendar. I was like, wow, it's almost been a year that we've had Windows 11 LTSC. So, but let's jump into the topics for today's live stream. I'm primarily focusing on what we get a lot of questions about today, and obviously what's the big hurdle that's coming our way, which is the end of support for Windows 10. And so, Henry and I, we get bombarded with questions about Windows 10 support, and so I'm definitely going to be covering that today. So let's jump into it. Let's jump right on into it and talk about 40 years of Windows version. So I'm going to be dating myself here pretty good, but you guys all know I have 40 years of experience with Windows. So, but if we look at all the different Windows versions, starting with 1985, which ironically was the year I graduated high school, Windows 1.0. I actually loaded Windows 1.0. Henry, have you ever loaded Windows 1.0? Have you ever seen Windows 1.0? Have you ever even seen it on a computer before? I would assume not. Maybe 3.1. What's the oldest version of Windows you remember, Henry, in your day? Just make a comment out there for me. I still have the floppy disks for Windows 3.1 somewhere in my garage, and I have thought about loading it, but I don't know if I want to put myself through that abuse. So, and then Windows 95 came along, and that's when things changed. I was also a Novell NetWare CNE, certified Novell engineer, network engineer with Novell. It's been too long. I was one of the first people to get a Novell NetWare CNE certification. It took like 7 exams. I remember it was a lot of tests. And that was a big deal when you had your Novell network, and then Windows 95 came along, and it had some Novell, plugins that allowed you to log your Windows 95 computer into the Novell network. I remember all of that. It was incredible time to experience all that. And then, of course, what some would argue the best operating system of all time is Windows XP. You haven't, so Henry, you haven't seen that. 95 was yeah, okay, yeah. I doubt you had loaded those old ones before. The argument these days is, what's the best operating system of all time? Henry, what's your favorite? What's your favorite out of all of those listed right there? What do you think is the best one? I think it comes down between XP and Windows 7. People will battle over those two as being two best Windows operating systems. And I actually have a computer in my garage that still runs Windows XP, and I booted it up the other day, and it booted right up and runs great. The graphics are to be desired, right? But it just did its job. It was a fantastic operating system. And then, of course, we all know Vista was sort of a flop. It didn't do so well. I actually liked Vista. I liked the moving waterfall background. The backgrounds the wallpapers you could get for Vista that were moving and stuff. I thought that was so cool that Microsoft included that. But it took a lot of horsepower to run Vista. It was ahead of its time. Most of the hardware in those days struggled to run it. Where XP, and then of course when Windows 7 came along, it would pretty much run on anything you could throw at it. And then Windows 8 was, again, way ahead of its time because it was really focused around touchscreens. But people didn't have touchscreens yet. So, that was the famous thing where they did away with the start button because they wanted you to use the touchscreen. But people didn't have touchscreens. So it was destined to fail, and they quickly released 8.1 and put the start button back. And then followed by Windows 10, which was supposed to be the last version forever, and we've had 14 build versions of Windows 10. It has grown tremendously over the years, and it has now become that operating system that people really, really love, and we're right here at the end where the support is ending. So people have a lot of choices to make here about moving to Windows 11. And then the big question that just hasn't been a lot of talk about is Windows 12. Is there going to be a Windows 12? And when will it come out? Will it be called Windows 12? I actually asked Copilot, AI Copilot, if Microsoft released a Windows 12, what would the Windows 12 logo look like? And this is what it gave me. So that's, according to AI Copilot, what Windows 12 logo would look like. But we don't know if there's going to be a Windows 12. Microsoft's pretty tight-lipped about that, and there still is zero information from Microsoft about Windows 12. You'll see all kinds of stuff about Windows 12 out there. I even have a video on my channel about Windows 12, but there's nothing. And I'm sure there's screenshots of different operating systems that might be Windows 12, but again, they may not call it that. So the other thing is, you can see from the past, they went from numbers to just names like XP and Vista. So what happens if they just decide to call it Windows AI? And again, I asked AI Copilot to create me a logo for Windows AI. So who knows? Maybe that's the next version. Maybe that's the next version of Windows. It would be interesting. It's going to be interesting to see. So we're either going to have build 25H2 of Windows 11 this fall, which is kind of looking that way because I haven't heard anything about any new version. Or who knows? We might have Windows 12 or Windows AI this fall. Yet to be determined. What are the comments? Let me look at the comments. Hey, Aaron Philk. Hey, good to see you. Throw your comment out there. And Henry, you loved Windows 7. Yeah, Windows 7's awesome. I think a lot of people could just run Windows 7 forever, and they probably do. And we still have it available in the embedded channel, so. Hey, Aaron, thanks for joining. Let's jump into the Windows 10 into support stuff. So Microsoft sent out this email to customers. I got it. I don't know who they were targeting, but I got it. And I actually have seen some YouTube videos from some other channels that had posted this email that Microsoft sent out, which is focused, around, hey, reminding customers that Windows 10, the end of support, is coming this October. The email's an interesting email, and I just wanted to talk to you a little bit because, for one, it doesn't say which version of Windows 10. It just says, hey, end of support for Windows 10 is approaching, right? Now, it's clearly targeted toward the consumers market, so your home and pro. But that's where a lot of confusion is coming, right? Is that Microsoft is saying, hey, the end of support is coming for Windows 10, but they're not really clarifying which version of Windows 10 are you talking about? Because in the IoT channel, we obviously have some versions that are going to have support for, years to come. So when you look at it, there's also an interesting sort of comical, I don't know if it's comical, but because we get this question, that third statement, which says, will my Windows 10 PC stop working? Come end of support. And we have got that question a number of times where people think that when the end of support or even the end of life, the computer's just going to not work anymore. And, that's just not the case. The Windows license is perpetual forever. Just like XP. I mean, if you have a license for XP, you can run XP forever. But the support will end, and there won't be any more security patches. So that's the only thing that's going to happen is when support ends, there's just no more security patches. But you're still legally licensed, and you still have a license that's good forever, and you can still run that license forever. So, but that question does come up strangely. I always think that's funny that, end of support, your computer's just going to stop working. And then the other thing to point out is there's no indication of extended security. There's no mention of extended security on this email. And that's primarily because they really want you to move to Windows 11. They don't want you to use extended security, which is another reason you get into the confusion, because they don't communicate very much about extended security. And it hasn't been available to everyone in the past. So this is kind of a new thing. And again, they want you to move to Windows 11. They don't want you to buy the extended security. Let's talk about the life cycle of all versions of Windows 10. So what's great about my chart I'm about to show you is it covers all versions of Windows 10. I'm just going to glance at the chat just to see, hey, cool, happy to be here, and yeah. Oh yeah, I do have a blog. So Maria, you want me to show that blog thing? So I'll put that there. There's a link there. Cool. That's true. I did do that blog on that, so I'll leave that here for just a second. The chart I'm about to show you is going to cover all versions of Windows 10, and it's going to do what I call set the record straight. I'm actually writing another blog that's going to cover exactly what I'm going to talk about right now, and I'm calling it "Let's Set the Record Straight for Windows 10 Support." And what's great about it, again, is I'm going to show you every version of Windows 10 and where the support stops and continues. So let's start with the non-IoT versions, and that's your Home and Pro. Now I don't put Home on here, but it's going to be similar to Pro there, the top one. So we're looking at Pro, we're looking at Enterprise, and we're looking at Enterprise LTSC. And again, you don't see IoT in the name of these, and that's because these are not IoT versions. These are the versions that are intended for general purpose use. They're intended for, internal employee company use, general everyday purpose computers, as well as home and Pro home computers. So, and what I'm showing you is that the support for the Pro and the Enterprise ends on October 14th, 2025. And then that's where what we call extended security updates come in. And that's where this is a first for consumers to be able to buy extended security. Previously, the only way you could get extended security was to be an OEM through our IoT channel or be a direct OEM. And it was very expensive. It's still going, I'll show you, it's expensive. But it's not, it's for a home user, they're giving you an option, and they're giving a corporate company an option, where before you had to be an OEM building an appliance or a direct OEM, and you'll see below that's still an option coming as well for our channel. But for the non-IoT channel, you can extend the security updates for 3 additional years. The way the pricing works, or the way they're saying it's supposed to work, is that year 1 is about $61. For home, I think it's $31 or $30. And then each year after that, the price doubles. So year 2 will be $122, year 3, $240. And so that's quite a bit of money to go 3 years. But the ideal is that you may only need year 1. And then that'll help you, give you more time to transition to Windows 11 or transition to one of these IoT products if you're an OEM building an appliance. So, and then the last one there is Enterprise LTSC, which is your long-term service channel. And it gets you a little further to January 2027. And the reason for that is because it's a long-term service channel. But again, it's through the volume channel. So that LTSC version does not get 10 years, it gets 5 years. And so it takes you to 2027. And I haven't seen anything about extended security updates for that version. That might change, but right now I haven't seen anything on that. Yeah, make sure if you have questions to throw them in the chat. I'm happy to answer them. And let me jump to the IoT versions. So the first two to look at are what we call the GAC version of Windows IoT Enterprise and the LTSB long-term service branch version of 2015. Both of those versions are ending on October 14, 2025. And at this time, there are no extended security options for those products. What I have been mentioning to people is the Win 10 IoT Enterprise GAC version is technically so similar to the second one up top, the Win 10 Enterprise, that you might be able to get away with buying the ESU for that one up there and it work with this one. But you would just have someone to have to test and confirm and verify that. I have a feeling that our IoT division would say no, that's not an option, but I have a feeling that those products, because they're so identical, that it would probably work. But the 2015 version was the first version of the Windows IoT LTSB, and we sold a good amount of it, but it was not that popular because 1 year later the 2016 version came out. The 2016 LTSB is one of the most popular products we've had. It's sold a ton. And for that reason, there is a possibility that there will be an ESU option for those. Again, that product doesn't end support till October 2026. So it already gets another year by default because it got 10 years of support from 2016 to 2026. There's a possibility, we're still waiting to see if it's going to happen or not, that there might be an ESU version for that. And now in our IoT channel, you have to buy 100 hours of support to qualify to then buy the ESU. And we obviously don't have any pricing for that either, but I would guess it's probably in that same territory of $60, $120, $240. And then in our IoT channel, we have the 2019 version, which came out in 2019. It would obviously get support until 2029. And we're not aware of any ESU options yet. Usually you won't find out about ESU until you're within a year or two of that product ending, and then Microsoft will talk about it. But I will say the 2019 version is our most popular version. We've sold more of it than any other flavor of Windows 10. So I would think there might be an option to extend it because we've just sold so much of it. Next up is LTSC 2021, which came out back in 2021, and obviously it's going to get support till January 2032, and no word on ESU yet. But it will be the last and longest supported version of Windows 10. So if you were on one of those up at top and you had an appliance, like you were on Win 10 Pro, and it qualified and it was an appliance, I mean, what are you waiting for? You need to jump over. If you didn't want to go to 11, you would go to this LTSC 2021 product, and then you would get support till 2032. And in some cases, if you're spending $60 for year one up there, down here, that's almost a full license depending on what processor you have, right? So why not switch to IoT? Now, what's interesting is the build versions. I want to point this out. Pro is build 22H2. And that version at the bottom is build 21H2. So it's actually not an upgrade. It's actually a downgrade. You're actually going back a build. But you're going back to an extremely stable and extremely tested and verified and secure build, which is, it can be done. The process isn't that difficult. We can help you with that. So, All right, let's talk. I want to show you guys what, if you were to search on the web for Windows 10 ESU, the actual Microsoft page. So let's talk about that. And that's this guy here. And I put the link here. I know that's a long URL, but if you were to just search for Windows 10 ESU, you'll see the link. It's one of the top ones that pop up, right? And there's more info than what I've shown. I've just done a screenshot of kind of the main FAQ. There's a FAQ there, and it talks about the cost, which I've already mentioned, which is $61, and it talks about the fact that you can't skip a year. Like, you can't just wait until year 2 and then buy year 2. You'd have to buy year 1 and year 2. They stack on top of each other. So keep that in mind. That's where it covers the pricing. Again, they don't talk about which version of Windows here. They don't say Home, Pro, they don't say Enterprise, they don't say IoT, right? But clearly they're talking about, this is clearly for organizations or businesses that are using it. And there is a mention, I wanted to say there was a mention of the Home version. Yeah, right there. For individuals or Windows 10 Home customers, it will be available at $30 for 1 year. So they may only be offering 1 year for home users. They may not even offer year 2 or year 3. So keep that in mind too. Is there a minimum? It's just quantity 1. So there's no minimum. Same for our IoT channel. It's minimum 1. And then I want to say that last thing is just talking about when it'll be available. And again, it'll be available in the volume licensing starting 12 months before, which means it should already be available in the volume channel. Here at Arrow, we're not authorized on volume channel. At least my division is not. So I don't have access to those part numbers to look at them or to get them. But I'm going to have to reach out and try to find those, so I can probably include them in my next blog I write, just to have them available. So, all right. Next up is just taking a look at, again, if you are on Windows 10 Pro build 22H2, and you can see the support ends this October. If it's an appliance you're running this on, you should absolutely be switching to one of these guys so you can extend that support. And I would choose 2021. One thing to note, and again, it's another popular question or issue we run into, is build LTSC 2019, build 1809, was the last 32-bit version of Windows. And so that's another thing to be aware of, is if your device is running 32-bit OS and you want to switch to Windows 11, it's 64-bit only. And same if you want to switch to Windows 10 2021, LTSC 2021, it's 64-bit only. So that means a wipe and reload. That means you're not doing an in-place upgrade. You're having to wipe that guy and reload it. And let's just glance at Windows 11 while we're at it. So if you happen to be on 11 Pro, you're getting a very short 2 years of support per build, right? And if they come out with a 25H2, I'm showing there in the gray that, we don't know if there's 20. It's looking like there's going to be a 25H2, not a Windows 12, but who knows? But if you're on Pro, you definitely want to switch to LTSC because it's going to get you the 10 years of support. So I think that's pretty much all I was covering today was the ESUs into support. So any other questions, now would be the time to throw them out there. Otherwise, I think I'm going to wrap up. I do want to mention SQL 2025. Because we are getting questions on SQL 2025. It's supposed to be out this year. We still don't have a release date yet. It is not out. So we do get customers saying, quote me SQL 2025. We can't even quote it because we don't have part numbers. It's not. We don't even have a launch date yet. So it should come out. I want to say it's coming out May, June. Between May and July is my expectation, but I'm just guessing. I have no idea, honestly. And that's it for new products this year, unless they come out with Windows 12, right? Or Windows AI or something like that. But at least I have it. I have it documented, that my predictions, if you will. Let me throw up how to get a hold of us. If you have further questions, you can always email us, windowsiot@arrow.com. And we are here to help you. The big question we get almost every day is, do I qualify for IoT? Am I able to buy Windows IoT? If you're a home user, an end user customer that's just using it at home, it is not for a home user. It is for, IoT is for OEMs that build appliances. And it's funny because I watched another YouTube recently that was talking about this same topic that I covered today, the Windows support. And he made a reference that Windows IoT was for connected devices, or it was for devices that are connected to the internet. That was his definition of Windows IoT, devices that are connected to the internet. I was like, it's for appliances, fixed purpose devices. So make sure, if you're a home user, there is a volume version of LTSC and a volume IoT LTSC. It's very expensive, but it's intended for an end user to purchase as an upgrade to Pro. So there is a way to get it, but it's very expensive, and it's kind of intended for corporate America or bigger companies, not really your end user home person. So again, our IoT version is for appliances. One last look. Yeah, we're all good. I will say thank you guys for joining, and have a good weekend. We will see you.